This is the walkthrough for the training design plan. This document can also be called a training map depending on what organization you're working for. You've already completed your analysis phase. In that phase, you've used your discovery document to find out what your stakeholders expect, the expected performance outcome. You've located your subject matter experts, data, prior training, and other documentation that you need to perform your analysis. You might even have gone so far as to perform a task analysis to discover if the performance outcome that your stakeholders expect is indeed the performance outcome that the training needs to attain. At this point, you've already presented your analysis conclusion to the stakeholders. You've told them what the actual expected performance outcome should be, and you've laid out all the tasks that need to be completed in order to achieve that expected performance outcome. You now have a list of all the tasks that are required to achieve that expected performance outcome, but now you need to turn those tasks into actual performance objectives. This is the document you do that with. In this walkthrough, we're actually going to look at the template, and then we're going to compare it to the document I created, the training design plan I created for another course I delivered called Classroom Command. So let's take a look at the template first. What you see is a simple spreadsheet made in Excel. It's not super sexy, but it starts from the largest or the greatest level of training delivery to the smallest. Let's blow this up real quick. So you'll see here that we start with the training program name. Now, one of the biggest misconceptions that exists in instructional design or training development is that instructional design is about creating a course. That could be further from the truth. In the analysis phase, you've looked at the expected performance outcome, and you found out exactly how much tasking exists in order to accomplish that goal. After that analysis, you may have found that what they assumed was going to be the amount of time that they need to complete the task might have taken more. We call this a training program. Now, a training program could be multiple days, it could be multiple modules, it could be things broken out in such a way that it's not all going to be done in one classroom period. Now, calling it a training program is something that I do. I call it a training program because I'm used to building different levels of training that all nest together. In education and in some learning management systems like Cornerstone, it's going to be called a curriculum. A curriculum is a combination of multiple courses stitched together for a greater performance outcome. For instance, if I was developing a course for a new hire training program for Tier 1 tech support, it's going to consist of multiple days and multiple topics. However, each of those topics might be something that's important to another part of the business. Rather than reinvent the wheel every time they need training, you can create modules of specific tasks that can be completed on their own, standalone training projects. And when you combine all those, you end up with a program or a curriculum. So with this training design plan template, you have the option of adding an entire curriculum here, which is multiple courses that might all stand alone, or it could just be one course. For the sake of the example that I have of one of my courses, it's only one course. Now, granted, there are certain sections I could break out into modules, but because each module is dependent on the module prior to it, it's a lot harder to make them independent courses entirely on their own. So each course and each course in a curriculum is going to have its own performance expectation. Since there's only one course we're going to be talking about here, there's only going to be one performance expectation. This will be written in the same context as you would your terminal performance objectives. The next level down is module or lesson. A module or lesson could be something that could stand on its own, but in this case, modules and lessons are dependent on each other in order to support the overall course. If there are going to be multiple courses, then I'll have modules and lessons that stand by themselves within each training course. However, you could also call it a module or lesson if you would use it in different training. Now, not all training requires a complete review and rebuild of the same topics. If I'm creating that same basic training level course and I'm talking about something specific in that course that's dependent on prior information, I could take out 2 or 3 lessons and apply it to another section of the business that might have very similar paradigms. The next level is your terminal performance objectives. Each of these are things that you're going to assess separately. They're all things that must be accomplished and must be accomplished at a certain competency level in order for the person to be fully considered trained and meeting that performance outcome. The next level is your enabling performance objectives. The enabling performance objectives you might also assess, but you're not going to assess it as a pass-fail type thing, but it's going to be more of like knowledge checks or practices where they accomplish a competency level with the enabling performance objective, but without having it attached to a terminal performance objective, it really doesn't have a lot of value when it stands on its own. So one of the things that I'm going to reinforce is that you'll always have terminal performance objectives. You will always have terminal performance objectives. However, you might not have a terminal performance objective with any enabling performance objectives. You can have nested terminal performance objectives, but for the sake of this training development plan, we don't necessarily do that so much. You just only worry about the terminal performance objectives and the enabling performance objectives. For the sake of explaining this template, I drew a giant black line along one column. All of this here is necessary in order to structure and properly develop your training. You have to know what your terminal performance objectives are. You have to know what your enabling performance objectives are, if there are any, to a terminal performance objective. However, everything beyond this line is nice to have. As you're mapping things out, as you're creating your terminal and enabling performance objectives, you might have moments of epiphanies, you might have ideas, you might have other information that you want to include. Like it might come down to a great idea as you're writing out the terminal performance objectives of the type of content that you want to specifically have in there. Special notes, anything that might be additional questions or something that somebody could use while they're developing the training. Pre-existing content links. If there's training that you have experienced or analyzed that contributes to this, or is actually content that you want to continue to use in this training product, then you can provide links for it. Delivery methodologies or processes. If you already know that the best way to deliver this terminal performance objective to achieve the competency you need is an e-learning, or it has to be instructor-led, or there's a scenario that should go with it, you can include these as part of the delivery method process. Possible activities. If there's, as you're working on it, you have a great idea of an activity that you could develop, you might want to make a note of it so you don't lose track of it. Possible knowledge checks as well. Things that might be creative or something that might stick in your mind that would help reinforce or assess whether or not those performance objectives have been attained. So this is what the template looks like, and it looks pretty daunting when you first open it up. But once you get used to it, you start finding that you're using it much like a whiteboard, much like how you would write things out on a board or using Post-its or what have you. And actually, you might use Post-its to arrange things and structure things. This is what you're going to use for determining whether you're scaffolding the training correctly and whether you're taking people through the journey and down the path you want them to go. It always starts out with the most basic, most concrete information and moves towards the more fine motor skills or the more complex or abstract information that they need to have. So now I'm going to show you what it looks like when it's actually put in use. This is the training design plan for my Classroom Command course. Let me blow it up for you real quick. So here in the very first column, it says Classroom Command. Like I said, this is a standalone course. However, this is all part of my instructor development series that I put on. So I could have my instructional design for law enforcement instructor course, my basic law enforcement instructor course, and then my Classroom Command course, and have all of those built into this one thing. If I was doing an analysis of the entire process it takes for somebody to become an instructor, and I had the time to be able to take them through that entire process, I would build that course all as one. But because each one could stand on their own, they would be individual commentary within this column. So here we have the performance expectation to facilitate the learning and development of law enforcement personnel. Very simple. Don't need anything more than that. That's the overall expected performance outcome of somebody completing this course. Next, I get into the modules and lessons. Instructor v. Facilitator. Vicarious liability. Sounds familiar. Time management, start, breaks, lunch, and ending. You can see where I've been building out the lesson plans, the modules. All this is based off of my task analysis and all the analysis that I performed in order to build this course. The next point are the terminal performance objectives. And you'll note that in some instances, the module, for instance, movement in classroom, only has one terminal performance objective, but it has two enabling performance objectives. Up here, with vicarious liability, you have the same thing. One terminal performance objective, but multiple enabling performance objectives. The best hint I can give you as to whether or not you want to make this a terminal performance objective with enabling performance objectives is the complexity of the performance objective. The complexity is defined by Bloom's taxonomy. As we learned earlier, the Bloom's verbs, action verbs, are not a hierarchy of what you have to accomplish in order to get there, but they're a level of complexity of what it takes to have the competency required in order to accomplish that performance objective. One thing that I'm going to give you that will help you determine whether a task is a terminal performance objective or an enabling performance objective is the complexity of doing that task. If you remember, we talked about how Bloom's taxonomy is not a hierarchy, but it's a list of complexities for performing that task. For instance, define the role of an instructor is a low level of complexity. It does not need enabling performance objectives. However, identify the responsibilities and impacts of vicarious liability is a higher level of complexity that requires defining vicarious liability, but also the ability to analyze situations where vicarious liability could exist. Now, if we're looking at Bloom's taxonomy as only a hierarchical method of determining action verbs, then people would be confused of how can I have analyze as an enabling performance objective when I have the terminal performance objective as a lower level of lower level on the hierarchy. But that's the point. It's not about hierarchy, it's about complexity. Identifying responsibilities and impacts of vicarious liability means that you're able to see those potentials. But in order to see them, you have to be able to analyze situations. Being able to see the responsibilities and impacts of vicarious liability means you're able to also analyze situations to determine if the definition of vicarious liability actually applies. So to recap, it's the complexity that determines whether or not you need to have enabling performance objectives for your terminal performance objectives. Now, that's not necessarily a rule, but it's kind of a clue. Apply time management policies in different scenarios. We don't need enabling performance objectives in order to apply something. We've already talked about the definition. We've already talked about creating time management policies and so forth. Now, you'll notice that some of these cells are thicker than others, and that's because of what exists on the other side of the line. Now, remember, we talked about how all this is absolutely necessary in order to build the framework or the structure of your training project. This is the notes that I thought of as I was creating this structure. So identify classroom behaviors that will need to be managed. I had this idea while I was doing this, and I wrote it all down. Additionally, special notes. Break policy must be clearly stated and identified prior to the first break. If I'm going to provide training on how to create a break or lunch policy, I also need to make sure that I establish when that policy needs to be made. I put that special note in there to remind me that this is essential to delivering this piece of training. To further go to the right, you'll see that I have pre-existing content links. These are links that I either use as reference material or they're links to prior training that I've developed myself. And then I know for a fact that this section I want to be instructor-led training. Matter of fact, almost all of this is instructor-led training at this point, but being that I've converted this to a VILT, there are other aspects of it that make it asynchronous. And then you have possible activities. I have a possible activity for playing a card game. This came to me while I was working on the enabling performance objective of demonstrate ability to manage disruptive behaviors. I came up with an activity that I thought would work really well with it, where I deal out cards. Some are red, some are black. They line up with the type of behavior. The black card determines when people deliver their piece of training that the disruptive behavior occurs. The red card determines what that disruptive behavior would be. It's a tongue twister. So everyone in the audience has a red card, and according to their number, they would show that disruptive behavior. And the participant would have to respond to it. And then you have possible knowledge checks, which I don't fill out necessarily because those usually come to me as I'm developing the instructor guide, and I'm creating and I'm going through the content in order to build the instructor guide. So this has been the walkthrough for the training design plan. I hope it's been illustrative, but it's also one of my favorite parts because this is the brainstorming part of building your training product. This is where you get to really use your creativity and you get to analyze the process that you're going to go through in order to achieve the expected performance outcome of the training product that you're developing.